All right. Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this or wherever you're joining from. Nice to be here. My name is Lola Demo, and I'm the founder of EQI Mindset. EQI is equity and inclusion mindset, and really the core of what I do is help organizations build communities within the workplace. And my favorite thing about this is getting to work with different leaders across different industries and build these communities to serve the business and the employees, and which is truly the art of workplace groups is being able to serve both sides, and that design looks very different depending on your organization. So that's why I'm excited about the panel we have for the ERG resource sessions today. So the context for the ERG resource sessions, I do have a monthly all things ERG call that happens every first Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and that's been going on for a couple of years now. So if you're an ERG leader or ERG oversight manager, that's a space to connect with other ERG leaders. It's 1 hour a month, so it goes by pretty quickly, but we've kept it very consistent. So it's a space to come ask questions, come get ideas and tips. So make sure you're joining those calls. But the ERG resource session is a little more in-depth look at what ERGs are doing across different companies, but also what tools, what nonprofits, what platforms are available for ERGs to leverage. So these conversations are curated. I usually host one or two of these a month so that we can get really that broad and deep perspective from different people on how to support the work that you're doing within your organization. So make sure you're following so you can know when we have the next one. But for today, we are going to be talking about what's working with ERGs. It's 2025, people. Welcome here. And it's been a very interesting year in the ERG world. We've had pauses, we've had cancellations, we've had very few launches. But I think we're at that time of the year where people are sort of, okay, we are ready to take that next step. Or what does that next step look like? And that's why we have our panelists for today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. If you're on LinkedIn, you already have their link, so you are able to see kind of their resume. But I wanted to do our introduction with a little twist and structure to give us a little more about the company. So if you all want to introduce yourself and tell the people listening your role within your organization, because sometimes there's a broader role and then there is the ERG piece. So your role within your organization, how does it relate to ERG, your industry, because that's also part of what we're talking about, and then help us understand what your ERG landscape looks like. How many groups are they spread out geographically, that kind of thing, before we dive into other questions. All right, Calvin, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Calvin McKee. I use the pronouns he, him, and I'm based in Ottawa, Canada. I am a diversity and inclusion specialist for an organization called Colliers. It's a commercial real estate industry, and we're a global organization, but a lot of my work spans across North America, so both Canada and the US. And so I'm a team of one and a bit when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So it was a new role that I stepped into about 2 years ago with Colliers. So still figuring out what that means for the organization. But within the purview of diversity and inclusion, I oversee our employee resource group program, which has eight community groups, and we have about just over 1,400 employees that are members of these community groups. And they've been, I think the oldest of the community groups is about 5 or 6 years. So still fairly early in the ERG program and group within Colliers. But I've worked with ERGs and within the diversity inclusion space for the last 7 or 8 years now. So a few years at Colliers, but prior to that was working within the tech sphere. So worked at Shopify and Uber. So a bit of a different industry and a big swing when coming over to Colliers and working in the commercial real estate side of things. But yeah, it's been a really exciting adventure so far. So excited to get into it and tell you a little bit more.
Thank you. Thanks, Calvin. That was a good context setting. Tanisha, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Tanisha Waddell Pyle. I am Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for MyPath Companies. We're a human services organization. We provide services to people with significant needs, from youngest 5 to span of life, so they can spend their entire life with us. We are a whole ecosystem within itself. We provide all the service, all the dignified care that they need. So we have schools, we even have a farm, we have residential facilities, we have a whole host of things to be able to help people have a quality of life. And we have about 2,000 employees and serve about 2,000 individuals from around the country in any of our locations. And like I said, I'm our company's director of diversity, equity, inclusion. We didn't have a DEI role until I got here, so definitely one of the people that the person that started kicked off this DEI efforts and the things that we're doing. Although I manage ERGs as well, that's just a small portion of the work that I do. I shouldn't say a small portion; it's actually a big portion because it's a lot managing ERGs, but it's not the everything that I do. I guess another neat thing about our company is that we're also an ESOP. So if you don't know what that means that we're employee stock option plan. So that means that all of our employees are owners. So everyone are owners of the company, and we are 100% employee owned, meaning that that owners are 100% full owners. I mean, employees are 100% full owners of the company. So if you hear me say owners, I actually mean employees throughout this conversation because we do call our employees our owners. And we have 8 ERGs that we started back in. First 2 came out in 2021, and then 6 more I started in 2022.
Thank you. And thank you for the clarification about the owners. I think I know you well enough to know when you use that phrase, but sometimes it could be confusing. So thanks for explaining that to the audience. Sarah?
I have to echo that. I wasn't sure. Thank you for explaining what an ESOP is and owners. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. So Lola, thank you for the invitation. So I'm based in San Diego, California. I work for ResMed. We're a medical device company. We're in the sleep business. We own the end-to-end sleep experience and address everything with obstructed breathing. My role was created as well. I am their head of global inclusion and diversity. I also manage our corporate social responsibility. So I have both of those. And I love it because it focuses on what's internal in terms of everything cultural, accessibility related, inclusive design. And then there's the external component in terms of what communities and making sure that there's like an equitable strategy around how we show up. ResMed's 11,000 people worldwide, 40 offices. And I have 18 employee resource groups. I started there about 5 years ago. We had 3 kind of ad hoc. So similar to Tanisha, right? It is a part of what I do. It takes up a lot of mind share, a lot of the strategy, aligning the ERG strategy to the business strategy. And it's probably the part of my job I love the most, working with the ERGs, but it's also probably one of the hardest. So yeah, I'm sure we'll dive into that, but thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for that introduction. Now let's go to a little bit about the name, the first part. So one of the questions that I used to get, I actually did a poll a couple of years ago when I landed on using the phrase ERG as a catch-all phrase around name, because people sometimes will say, when I explain it to them, they're like, oh, we do have groups. We just don't call them that. Right. So ERGs is kind of like a catch-all phrase at this point, but most companies call them something different. And I wanted to ask you all about that. We see organizations call them ERG, BRG. What do you call your groups and why? Is there any story behind that? And is there any impact there? So should we go backwards this time? Should we start with you, Sarah?
Yeah, I will say, so my current role, we call them employee resource groups. But I'm glad you're bringing that up because it depends on the industry you're in. I think in a lot of retail, the groups can serve as a resource, a business resource in terms of how they design the product. My prior employer, Qualcomm, we called them employer networks. We wanted to look at them as networks because there really was no product to inform. So it was more like networks of people. So it does go back to the culture, the community, the product, what the company does. But I've dealt with both ERGs, ENs. But yeah, I've seen them play with the word groups a lot, network, communities.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Tanisha?
Yeah, so holistically, they're known as ERGs because that's just kind of the common language, so people have an understanding of what they are. But within our company, they know that what we do equates to ERGs. But within our company, we call them owner resource groups because, again, we're employee owned. But the official name of our employee resource groups are Pathfinders, and we call them Pathfinders because I thought it was a good play since our company is called My Path, and that these Pathfinder groups are a continuation of that. Since our company is called My Path, I named our employee resource groups Pathfinders because they are people that are helping to find the path within My Path for our employee owners. So, but we definitely think of them as just employee resource groups. But the official name, I guess, is that since we're on 100% employee owned, we call them owner resource groups.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanisha. All right, Calvin.
Yeah, I would echo the same sentiment where we refer to ours as employee resource groups as well. I think partially just to help us, it was already set like that when I joined, and so I wasn't looking to change that. But I think it allows us to really just remain focused on being a resource to employees first and foremost. So having those community groups to help foster connection and community amongst peers, and making sure that that's the priority and we don't lose that. Because I've seen sort of the other side of it where I think the move to business resource group changes what these communities are all about. And so when you start to, I think there's great opportunity where employee resource groups can connect back to the business, but when you become a business resource group, there's a different angle and approach to how you support community and sort of seeing what the priority is. So I like to stick with employee resource groups because it helps us remain focused on connecting with our people and ensuring that they find value in being an employee or an owner, in Tanisha's case, first and foremost, before then saying, how do we impact the bottom line? So I think it sort of allows us to remain consistent and constant with that.
Yeah.
And I need to add to that, just kind of because we are employee resource groups, but we do empower our employees that are a part of these resource groups to impact business. So they are given a voice, they are given a platform to kind of share their thoughts, their ideas, and different things like that. So I think it's just kind of like what you make of it, even though you can say that our ERGs are BRGs, our BRGs are ERGs, however you want to look at that. We do really make sure that first and foremost, we are empowering our staff, our owners, but then also giving them a voice and a pathway to help impact organizational business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think I wanted to start with that because I think sometimes we get stuck on the names. I have conversations with people that, our groups we're moving from ERGs to BRGs, and it's almost like we're moving from being employee focused to business focused. It shouldn't be a move. It should all be folded in how the groups do the work they do.
Yeah.
And the naming convention can support like a company strategy, but we can't get stuck in we don't want to lose the community and the employee impact, and give up something for the other. It should all be folded in the work. So thank you for sharing that. If you're listening, thank you, Jackie. Says understanding the name choices is key for how the work within the organization is done. Yes, absolutely. If you're listening and you want to drop your naming convention in the comments, that would be great. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. But I'm also going to go into specific question for each of the panelists based on addressing companies at different stages of their ERG journey. And so my introduction question was for us to understand where the panelists are coming from. So we have ResMed, we have medical device, that space, we have commercial real estate, we have disability services, right? 3 seemingly different industries, and we're talking about ERGs. And so Calvin, if we could start with you, can you share a little bit of how do your ERGs help contribute to the work that you're doing as an organization?
Sorry, I froze for a second, or I lost track. So if y'all just if someone wants to take it away, and then I'll follow suit after.
Yeah. So the question. So we're kind of moving into the business impact, employee resource groups and their business impact. And so from your industry perspective in commercial real estate, what's your client
Yeah.
stake? Right? How do your ERGs impact the work that you do for your customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say part of what we're trying to figure out is how we can do that more and better. And so, again, most of our ERGs right now are still fairly new. They're only a few years old. And so our approach right now is that each of our ERGs has, we use the 4C model, if folks are familiar, but if not, it sets up 4 pillars. So community, career, culture, and commerce. And so we use that model to help create specific goals within those pillars. And so one of those goals being commerce is where we sort of have the one focus for each of our ERGs right now to connect back to a broader business goal. And we leave that pretty open and vague, whether that's supporting talent attraction, the company brand, or if there's an opportunity to connect back with the client and opportunities. So we leave that right now for each of the ERGs to sort of suss out and figure out what works for them and what's manageable. So right now it is a lot of more focused on sort of the talent attraction piece and employer brand side of things. So we've worked towards things like the Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equality Index, receiving a score of 100 on that. We had another one for the Disability Inclusion Index. So working on different pieces like that help with the talent attraction employer brand side of things is where the focus lies right now. And then from there, we're starting to figure out like what is the approach that we can do to creating more accessibility within our properties, and how do we support and connect with clients on those bases, and then how do we ensure that folks want to work with Colliers because we're an inclusive organization, because we create opportunities for people to find success in the pathways that they have set forward. And so yeah, it's still an early conversation and something that we're working on trying to figure out a little bit more and how we can connect better with our clients. So we're starting early days.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that at least starting with that model means that you also kind of know where we need to do some more work, or maybe where we're focused on for this year. We can move fast on every sector at the same time. And that's also another ERG tip, is like, don't try to boil the ocean. Is that what the phrase is?
Yeah.
Let's just take one at a time. So, okay, thank you, Calvin. I'll go to you, Sarah. Healthcare tech, medical device tech, very fast, lots of innovation. How do you think your groups help with that?
Yeah, I've since the beginning kind of developed a strong relationship with our leaders of product and mask design. So ResMed makes masks that really help people breathe at night. And so one thing I've gotten our ERGs to do is get involved in mask fitting trials. And so a lot of times when they're in the process of designing, we've canvassed all of our employee resource groups and asked them to take measurements of their faces. So we're able to get different metrics, right? We're global, so we're everywhere. And that's just a really good way to leverage our own diversity to help design our products. We've also leveraged our ERGs for outreach strategies. So what's the best way to reach out to the Hispanic community here? What's the best way to reach out to the Chinese community in Sydney? So kind of getting that feedback from our communities in terms of always making sure we're culturally sensitive, even having them review language at times. We've done it in San Diego, where we've sponsored certain events in communities so that we can talk about it and show up in a way that feels less daunting, right? So sleep is personal, healthcare is personal. And so leveraging our ERGs has been helpful. Veterans as well. That's one of the ERGs when it comes to recruiting. It's sometimes hard to articulate the amazing experience they had, but then when they transfer over to civilian life, using that ERG to say, here's this experience and how would it help here, whether it's in manufacturing and supply chain and IT. So again, it depends, but definitely from the design side, we're leveraging our own employees there, and then also just past experiences and past lives helping us bring that. The last thing I'll say is we have an employee resource group for neurodiversity and disability and mental health called ABLE. And leveraging that group. So we want to as well bring that into accessibility testing, user testing. So, always asking, hey, are you willing to test this product? Are you willing to give us feedback?
That's great. And I think that's a key part of thinking about it for your industry, what's needed, and how can you scale that, leveraging your own focus groups, right? You spend
Exactly.
all this time focused on customer market, customer research, and just recognizing that we do have a diverse group within our organization. How can we leverage that? Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Tanisha, so same questions for you. In your industry, in the way your company serves your customers, how have your ERGs, or how are you leveraging ERGs already or thinking of?
Yeah, yeah, that's that again. Great question because we really do try to use our pathfinders, our owner resource groups as a platform. So, like I said before, elevate the voices and experiences of our owners for them to be allies. They can come in to help educate, to collaborate, to kind of help develop their careers. It helps us to promote the understanding of ESOP, to support our clients, and then also make an impact on our MyPath business. I do kind of really make us follow like three pillars within our company as well, of that everything that we do, we need to look at it through a lens of how can it impact each other. So like our fellow owners, how can it impact the people that we serve, and how can what they do impact the communities that we touch? So really leading into that corporate social responsibility as well. But even for our for other people, for the people that we serve, our ERGs were able to come up with a process to kind of really help our staff that would, because our staff, especially our frontline staff, they're direct care, so they deal with a lot of tense emotions, a lot of tense behaviors, just a lot of a variety of different things that they encounter in their day-to-day work. So some of them were dealing with a lot of issues where it came to, you know, harmful incidents that had to around racial, gender, or culturally harmful incidents. So through that, that group was able to create a practice and a procedure to be able to make sure that those staff were treated with dignity and respect, and also support during any time there was some sort of incident that came up like that. And that was really amplified within one of our employee resource groups, where we all kind of got together and been able to create a process around that. We've had things such as review of our handbooks to be gender neutral, making sure that we have gender neutral bathrooms, pregnant person parking spaces. We've used our ERGs to create mental health training and resources. Another key thing that we also did through our mental health group is that we were able to increase the EAP offerings. So it was a minimal number, and we got that number boosted up about three to five more visits that people can have with the EAP through our ERGs. And then we do also have a abilities and neurodiversity group as well. So we've been able to raise awareness around that with our staff as well, particularly for staff neurodivergence. You know, like obviously we work with people that have a lot of different neurodiverse needs, but really recognizing that our staff may have that as well, and what supports we can put in place for them. And then another one, and we also have an environment group. So really looking at ways that we can utilize Go Green initiatives, like maybe not using K-cups anymore, or eliminating styrofoam from one of our places that they serve food at. And then kind of having someone in our groups was able to campaign around those difficult conversations about end of life planning. So they really promoted this 5 Wish campaign to really help people to kind of get those things in place. But it made the conversation easier because we were able to support it through our ERG. They were able to have dialogue about it and be able to have some authentic conversations around that work, to make sure that they had their plans in place. So we're able to use our ERGs for a variety of different things. I always say that, you know, our ERGs are obviously there for a safe space for support, but also to help to try to change the landscape of our company for the better as well.
Yeah. Yeah, cultural impact. Thank you for sharing that. I think we already had Calvin on that question, right? Yes. Okay. And the goal, for going through this question with you all is also for those listening. It doesn't matter the industry, every organization, we know the data, we keep seeing all this generic language like around ARGs create impacts, they are business changers. But how? It will look different for your organization. It depends on what your focus is. It depends on how your industry is navigating, and that's really what shapes the way you build the impact that you can have. And I think that flows into my next question, which will be specifically for each of you and your organization, on what the journey so far has been. That journey from intention to reality. A lot of companies talk about knowing the value of ERGs. right? ERGs are great. ERGs are great for boosting. ERGs are great for these. But what does that journey look like within each of your organization as far as intention to reality? We know the statistics. ERG members are likely to be promoted, feel more belonging. Let's talk about that gap, and how your organization has been able to bridge that. So for Sarah, I'm thinking of those that um, want to launch new groups that are in that process of, having that conversation at the leadership level on we want to have ERGs, right? Based on your experience with the role and also really launching brand new groups. And I know Tanisha has that experience as well. So when you walked into ResMed or started the whole ERG updates, launching new ones. What did you start with? And maybe share with us some of the things you had to build to move from we should have ERGs to what they are right now. And so think of the people that are listening that want to launch new groups.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is really valuable. So at the end of the day, ERGs are employee driven. It's very delicate to go and tap people or say, go start one. There has to be a business need. I'm speaking from just where I'm coming from. When I got there, I went on a neutral listening tour to understand what people would like to see, what does it mean to them, and kind of asking these questions. And so for example, we didn't have a veterans ERG, we didn't have a parents one, we didn't have a caregivers one, but through time and through conversations, it became apparent. And then it was like, I created the framework. If you want to start an employee resource group, here are the bylaws, here are the processes, here are the expectations. And I also had checklists around, how you manage one, right? Here's the SOP. A lot of people will come up with an idea for an ERG that does not necessarily fall under the definition of what an ERG is at ResMed. And so there have been conversations where this doesn't necessarily meet the need. And then let's talk about what does. And if you're able to build a board, if you're able to make a business case, if you have, ideas for a budget, what does it look like? And so there is a whole process that was built around it. We didn't get to 18. We got to 3 to 18 in about 3 or 4 years. And that's because once people started identifying the value that the ERG was given, then other employers were raising their hands and saying, hey, we might need this woman's ERG in India. You know what? We might need something here in Sydney. But yeah, I think I went on a tangent there, Lola, but does that kind of answer?
No, that was great. That's exactly what I want to talk about is you mentioned the listening tour, which is again understanding, right?
Yeah.
So was that listening across the existing groups or listening across the organization as a
No,
whole?
across the organization, across all levels. It's so important to make sure that you're speaking with middle management, with every level across the business. You never know who's going to raise their hand. And I've had the joy of watching employees rise when they were, starting off as an ERG board member, then a chair, and then suddenly they're getting promoted in their career because it's a parallel experience of developing leadership skills. And then that recognition and that visibility that you get really helps augment their career. So with that said, the listening tour, I will say, I like the fact you brought up the intention. The hardest part is retaining people on ERG boards because everyone has a full-time job and has a life. And it's really hard. I have seen groups have so much going on and then there's nothing. And there's a lot that, the D&I team, and I wonder if Tanisha and Calvin go through this too, but there's a lot of times we have to step in to help. So there's that component that ERG management is challenging because at the end of the day, they're volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also part of the expectations we set for them when they step into this role, because they come in all excited and wanting to do like 20 things. And we have to remind them that
if you do
can
2 things good a year, you're great, So
Thank you, Sarah. So Calvin, kind of similar. If there's something you want to share around for those that want to launch groups, but I also wanted you to speak to a little more maybe on engagement, because you do have also not necessarily as many ERGs, but you have a lot of employees engaged in the ERGs. So can you share a little more on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll echo some of Sarah's sentiment too, that putting in a lot of the framework for what an ERG is, what does it look like, how do you build it, what are the roles, the expectations, like having that all very clearly laid out and put together, made it a little bit more manageable. But I think when I came in, I think we had six, I think we were maybe seven, maybe on the breach of 8 ERGs when I joined. And so again, many of them fairly new. And I think a lot of it at the time was, okay, how do we create more awareness that these groups exist? How do we create those opportunities for people just to connect, engage, network, and really just understand what these are all about? And so while normally I am very much like do one or two things, make them high impact, do them really well, and then like that's plenty. There was a lot of ideas flying. We had some pretty good dedicated like leadership teams for these groups, and so we did a lot. We hosted a lot of like events with guest speakers. We did panels. We did in-office celebrations. We looked at different cultural celebrations and significance days that we could honor and recognize. And so for sort of that first year when I was with Colliers, we did just a lot, and we did more. And so part of it was just to help build the awareness and get in people's face that like these groups exist. Here's opportunities. This is what they're all about. And so now we're getting into more of like, okay, let's be more intentional with like, what are we doing? How do we make sure that this is a sustainable approach for you as a leader, as Sarah mentioned, because again, the retention piece is really hard. We get into waves where suddenly we're super busy and your ERG leaders just sort of like fall off the face of the earth and you're like, hey, what happened? So I think for now, it's about just trying to, again, we've moved into that 4-pillar piece. And so setting up really just 4 goals for the whole year, right? And so if you can only do 4 things this year, it's these things. If you have other brilliant, wonderful ideas, amazing. But the first 4 are priority. If you achieve all those, then we can move forward. And so again, I think for us, it was just about how do we set sustainable approaches for our ERG leaders? And then just how do we make it easy for people to engage? And so we tried to hit all avenues. So we're very hybrid. We've got a lot of in-office, we've got a lot of remote workers. And so we try to do as many virtual offerings as we can, but we operate within we use Microsoft, so we have Teams, we've got email distribution lists, so we try to make sure that people can engage there. And then wherever possible, we try to do in-office celebrations. So we try to find people that can operate or take lead on a Pride celebration or a Black History Month celebration in our offices, wherever possible. And again, if it's only 6, 7 people, it's still impactful. It still means something to that small group. And so for us, I think it's just a matter of being okay with having smaller numbers right now in the hopes that it'll start to grow and sort of catch. But we really just keep it easy, as simple as possible. Just show up. There's no expectation for you as a member. If you want to come and be a member for 2 days, or if you want to be a member for 2 years, that's totally fine. But we leave it really open and optional to sort of come and go, see what it's about, see if it makes sense for you. And then lastly, I'll say is that we do a yearly ERG sort of engagement survey where we try to collect feedback from ERG members specifically. So really understanding what is it that you're looking for when you're a member of these community groups. Are they serving you? You know, are the events that we're hosting the right ones? Are they at the right time of day? Like, what is it that you want by being a member? What are you looking for? And that helps us really sort of steer our ERGs right before they go into sort of their yearly strategic planning around their goal setting. So it sort of helps inform them what they should be looking at and doing.
Yeah, I like that. And there's something you said that I wanted to really emphasize for those listening is there was a period where the focus was on creating awareness. We want people to know the ERGs exist. We didn't just create the ERGs to put it on the website, right? And when that, this is about understanding what season you are in your ERG journey at your organization. Sometimes it's just about awareness. And so the program design, the frequency, the participation is all going to be focused on that goal. What are we trying to accomplish as a company? If awareness is the goal, how can we plug in with the comms teams? How can we do events that meet people where they are with their day job, right? So that understanding that big goal will kind of drive the strategy of the kind of programs that you do. And then if things change the next year or two, and we're like, now we want to get plugged into product design, or we want to get plugged into our community, then that drives the kind of programming as well. We don't have to do the same things all the time every year. So thank you for sharing that, Calvin. Tanisha?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that when starting the ERGs that I really wanted to focus on was really professionalizing it, if that is kind of a thing, making sure that there was a framework for one, So there was a foundation to be built that could be duplicated for other groups. And to also absolutely make sure that they were professionalized. So I thought it was really important to make sure that there was a structure, that there was access, that there was connection to key leadership, that they had a place within the organization where they were taken serious. And that it was looked at as a thing to want to be a part of and a thing that you wanted to aspire to or be a part of within the organization. Our ERGs are very much amplified within our organization. Everyone from our board to our executives to our leaders all know about the employee resource groups and know that it is a very good thing when their staff, because anybody from any level of employment can become a ERG leader. So just kind of like Sarah was saying, just watching those journeys, a lot of times people coming into the role and then just blossoming from there has been an awesome thing. We have leaders and then just connecting them with our executive team. So all of our employee resource groups, executive sponsors come from either our executive team or our board. Also making sure that when our ERG have opportunities to engage. So even if we have new potential or new board members, there's a meeting with all ERG leaders that we have with our board, with that new board member to kind of just let them experience our company, let them experience the different groups that we have, and for us to kind of get a feel for who they are and to talk to them about, you know, our ERG efforts, our DEI efforts, and a variety of things. So just really making sure that, for one, that framework was there, which is obviously very foundational, to make sure that you have that, but to also to make sure that they're connected within the organization was very important. Because sometimes you hear that some ERGs, like, they don't either have the funding or they don't have the awareness or they don't have the amplification within the company for people to take them serious. I think that that was one of the things that I really set out to do when creating these ERGs, was not only creating that framework, but making sure that they were taken as a serious entity with as a serious groups within our organization that can actually help, you know, create that culture and inclusion for our employees, but also help to drive business impact as well.
Yeah, I like that, and that's the, you know, grassroots, top bottoms up. I think the ERG landscape is shifting now to where companies are launching the groups, but it used to be more grassroots effort, and then you try to convince leadership.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
No,
And
our leaders take our ERGs very serious. They take their roles as executive sponsors very serious. You know, from, like I said, if I want to say in a sense, professionalize it, because I also do provide compensation or reward and recognition for our ERG leaders. So it's something to be able to be in that role. It is something that, again, can help them if they are wanting to explore leadership roles. They also get reward and recognition for that. They get support in professional development, just a variety of different things to make sure that they're honored for the work that they're doing. You know, because a lot of times you have people that come into these roles that are, you know, in alignment to what the group is, or you may have an ally leader, but regardless, you don't want to exploit people for their passion and experience. So that's why I believe in making sure I provide some sort of reward or recognition to them.
yeah, and there's a question on something you just mentioned now. Who are the executive sponsors at your organization?
Do what now?
Who are your executive
Oh,
sponsors?
so anybody from our C-suite. So our CEO, our CFO, our chief administrative officer. We also have the chairman of our board is one of our executive sponsors for our group. So our board member is our chief operating officer. Everybody from the C-suite is an executive sponsor to one of our groups, and then we also have one of our board
I like
members.
that. Yeah, and I think you've mentioned that before, so I wanted to make sure we capture that, because that's also, again, very strategic design.
Mm-hmm.
They have skin in the game, really,
Yes.
and they are the
Yes.
leadership of the organization.
Yeah, and then even on, like, you know, on our website where we have like our chief our C-suite posted on our website, they also on there, I made sure they put on there that one of their roles was executive sponsor of whatever group they were a part of as well, to amplify it even more.
It amplifies it. Thank you. All right, so we're kind of running out of time, so I wanted to do one more round with a wrap up, and this one is specifically addressing the climate we are right now, as far as for ERG, against ERG, and all of the stuff that has been happening in 2025. And so wanted to do a little check-in with you all about 2025 game changers. So what's shifting in your ERG programs this year, if any? So you all have had your ERGs for more than a year. So what did you think in 2024? Is there anything that has changed? And then any advice you have for those listening as we look forward to 2026?
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead. I'll just say, just continue to, especially what we're dealing with in 2025, make sure you continue to leave your ERGs open. That they have to be a space where all can, don't make them exclusive. We never made our ERGs exclusive. They always were a space where anybody can come join at, whether they were there because they identified with that group, shared characteristics, or wanted to learn or wanted to be an ally. And then for us, some of the things that we're doing is that we're just combing over language and documents to just still uphold that we're in compliance with anti-discrimination laws, and just making sure that, these legal frameworks and our organization practices, to make sure that we are just reinforcing that our belief in diversity and equity are both a moral and legal imperative within our company. So we're just continuing to make sure that we are, staying true to our beliefs and values and supporting this work around employee resource groups and equity and inclusion.
Thank you, Tanisha. Sarah, I think you agree.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of volatility now in the market, a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty. And so one thing I've been telling I've had a lot of strategy conversations where, doing more, not doing quality versus quantity, I think is really important. So I'm telling them to just focus on maybe one or two things a year, but also co-sponsor, find synergy together. And so that's something we're pushing more. It's like, okay, DEEM is coming up, Discipline Plan Risk 1. Why don't we get our caregivers, parents, and like 5 ERGs together, and then they can lean on one another. So that's kind of the messaging right now. I'm very thankful that, ResMed is very supportive of all the ERGs, but it is still, we are operating with do more with less in every way, and budgets are smaller. So we do have to be more creative and more agile.
Yeah. Thank you. Alvin?
Yeah, I'll second that too. I think the focus on the quality piece, again, do less but make them great, make them memorable. If it gives people a little bit of FOMO, great, they'll come back next time and see what it's all about. But I think and the intersectional piece, I think, is important. How can the ERGs work more together? Stop like reinventing the wheel, feeling like this is something this specific group has to do. So finding those opportunities to connect. But yeah, I think especially for this year and sort of going forward, I think trying to make sure that, again, things are open, but that we're continuing to listen to our ERGs in those communities. And for me, they've always been about enhancing the employee experience, right? And so utilizing these groups to really understand what is it that our people are looking for and want from this organization. How can we ensure that when they show up, they are seen as valuable, but this is an enjoyable place for them to come and spend 40 plus, usually more, hours a week, right? Like these are people that they're connecting with more than sometimes their friends and family. And so how can we ensure that this is somewhere that they want to be, this is somewhere that they want to stay, and this is somewhere that they feel respected and valued and truly treated equally. And so utilizing the groups in that way and really making sure that this goes beyond diversity and inclusion, but really to that total full employee experience. And so not disregarding these community groups because of current political climates, but continuing to lean into them even more, in my opinion, and listen to the experience that they're having and why this can't only be a place that's focused on work, but where some of the personal and real life situations come into play and really impact their day-to-day functions and operations and ability to do great work. So I would say, honestly, double down more on supporting these communities and listening to them and understanding how you can do better as an organization to support underrepresented community groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, every one of you, for sharing. I think also being recognizing the fact that you all are here because your organization is still doing this work and you are able to come on here. I also want to acknowledge that there are organizations that have dissolved their DEI programs, but they've kept their ERG. Interestingly, right? So one of the things I wanted to kind of pull this all together to share with people listening is you still have the groups, where are they now positioned? Are they positioned under HR leadership now? Is it somebody in communications that is managing the groups? What does the landscape look like? If you're an ERG leader in an organization where it feels like there's not leadership support, feel free to connect with me. Feel free to connect with some of the panelists. There are things that you can do to keep your communities together, supported as you navigate the challenge in these times. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we have these guys here doing this work and even able to have this conversation because the work is going. We know that's not the reality in a lot of organizations right now. It's not, there's a lot of shifts and changes to how the ERG programs are being run. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for staying on and taking on the leadership role and leveraging your voice and skills. But join us first Friday in September. That space is ERG leaders across this company, different companies, and we get into the weeds of what's going on at your organization. What can you do differently to keep moving? And then for those that are thinking of launching as well, I think you also see that we have people that just launched, people that launched new, groups that started. So we have a range of experience here. But what does your scenario look like? What is the biggest challenge you're facing at your organization right now with your groups? If you're able to drop it in the chat, we're going to be monitoring the chat even after we go off live. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat on LinkedIn, and we'll get back to you. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts from anyone for those listening?
Thank you for the invitation, Lola, and for this opportunity to have this important conversation.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, seconded. Thank you so much. And if you have ERG leaders, please give them a lot of recognition and praise and thank them because they are doing usually this work for free on the side of their desk. And so however you can thank them, whether it's just you as a fellow peer or can encourage your leadership to do it. It's a hard job, but it's usually something they're passionate about. So just thank them in some way.
Yeah, and that is where it's at. It's their heart's work. It really is their heart's work. And they're doing this on top of their full-time jobs. So they're intentionally making time and energy for something that they feel deeply and passionately about, that can help connect with their fellow employees, that can help connect with their communities. So this is just really important to honor them, to uplift them, to give them the roadway that they need, to give them the support that they need, is something that you just have to do. You can't kind of leave them kind of just floundering by themselves. They have to have that support and recognition as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I'll do one final event plug before we wrap up. August 20. So I host a quarterly roundtable workshop for ERG oversight managers. So this session is specifically to those that manage multiple groups and are kind of in that session of what do we do next? Where are we as an organization with our groups, and what do we need to do next? And it's a 90-minute session. We actually workshop and break out on your next step strategy to support your group. So I think this quarter is going to be timely because there's so many things that have been paused, and there's so many people thinking, what should we do for our ERGs, with our ERGs, to wrap up the year as we get ready for 2026. So I hope you can join. The link to sign up will also be in the chat. And I look forward to reading your questions and having follow-up conversation. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you, Sarah. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.